Here for
Recording
Shabbos
in progress.
Parshas Boy, Tafshin Mem Gimel. And the Rebbe is speaking about a certain Rashi that says in our Parsha, towards the end of our Parsha, right at the end of Chamishi, it speaks about how the Yidden went out of Mitzrayim. After that, it says the halachas of Pesach, Zois Chukas HaPesach, a whole bunch of things, and Rashi says that it was said prior to going out of Mitzrayim, even though its placement in the Torah was after speaking by Yetzias Mitzrayim, but the halachas were said prior to it. The Rebbe also in the Sikha explains that many of the halachas that it says over there actually didn't have a practical application in that year. It was meant for later generations. And the Rebbe is going to bring out from this some hayros for the Geula. So we're holding in the middle of the page. We're going to start from Ois Chavav. V'hinei b'pirish Rashi the parsha saying all the pasuk Zois Chukas HaPesach, and the pirish of Rashi on our parsha on the pasuk it says this is the statutes, the halachos of Pesach. Yesh nahira niflach shudim close in hagols v'agula k'ilkamon. There is an unbelievable lesson and directive gets connected with the general idea of Golus and Gula, as he will explain. Ubehegd, by first prefacing Yedua, it's known Sheklolos in Hagolus Achren Ubetoirachana Legili Teroseh Shel Moshiach. The general idea of this final exile is a preparation for the revelation of Mashiach's Torah. Kimavur b'Torah Reisha Parshas Shmos, like it's explained in Torah of the Alter Rebbe at the beginning of Parshas Shmos. Just like the primary goal and the intention in the exile from Mitzrayim was to merit the receiving of the Torah, so too the entire length of this Golos is to merit the revelation of the inner part of Torah that's going to be Shiur, that will be when Moshiach comes. Because during Matan Torah on Har Sinai, when the Yidden left Mitzrayim, then they received the revealed part of the Torah. But the inner reasons and mysteries of the Torah, their revelation will be when Mashiach comes. And just like to receive the revealed Torah, they had to go through Golus Mitzrayim, so to our Golus that we are going through is to be able to receive the inner part of the Torah. Therefore, just like in the exile of Mitzrayim, there were all the details of the enslavement of difficult and breaking labor, with mortar and bricks, and all the work in the field, difficult labor. And so too, this has to be a replica of this in the final Golus, but in the final Golus, all of these matters are different ways of Torah study. They made their life bitter, that's Torah. What's the bitterness of the life of Torah? Because Torah is our life. So a bitter life means we have difficulty in Torah study. We are toiling in Torah study. Difficult work, that is talking about kasha is related to questions, just like the Gemara and Torah is filled with questions. The word chaymer is also related to kal v'chaymer, where you learn something from if so is by a minor, for sure by a more difficult thing. Skip the brackets. And every work out in the field, that's talking about the section of the Gemara known as Braisa, B'Levenim, and the bricks. Dalibun Hilchased. B'Levenim is related to the word white, meaning clarifying halacha. Through going through all of this toil, but not physical toil and physical labor, but toil in Torah. Through this Zoichem, Legili Primis HaTorah Los Lovi, we merit the revelation of the inner part of the Torah in Mashiach's times, Lias Arenu Niflois, that I will show you wonders. That's in the Torah over there. The Cholzeh, and all of the above Tzarech Lias Ba'ifin Shal Avodas Parach has to be in a way of a lot of toil. The study of Torah out of great toil. The need of the toil is not just for side reasons. Sometimes the toil is needed because there's other things that are distracting or disturbing us from Torah. For example, to remove all types of things that are disturbing us, or the problem is why he has to toil, or the person's mind is not as developed, that's why he has to toil in Torah, or because of the depth of the topic that he's learning. So that's not the only or sole reason of toiling in Torah. Toiling in Torah is a mitzvah in and of itself, regardless of if there is, let's say, the need for toil or not. It's a general condition in the general concept of, or it's a primary and core condition in the general concept of Libra Torah. Which Shviras HaKlippus says in the Geras HaKodesh, only through toiling in Torah has it affected the refining of the sparks and breaking of klippos, etc. And he brings from what Reb Chaim Vital said about his Rebbe, the Arizal. Like it's known what Reb Chaim Vital said about this, the style of the Torah study of the Arizal. Sheseder limudai al derech harogil, his ordinary, customary style of learning, was in such a way that he put in so much effort that the sweat would pour off of him. Skip to the next line. From this we can understand how much toiling in Torah is a primary and core thing. Moving agam poshut, it's obvious, it's understood and also obvious. That the Arizal's mind was at the highest, most quality of a mind. Additionally to that, he had no worldly bothers to interfere. Like it's known what's related about his life, that he was supported by his father-in-law. He would sit an entire week on a boat by a river, and he was involved in Torah, so he won't be disturbed by anything. Only for Shabbos did he return home. Despite the fact that he had no side distractions, he used to put in great effort and toil in the study of Torah. Like we said before, not only when he learned a particular topic that was very deep, that was his customary, normal way of learning. Because the idea of toiling in Torah is a core matter in Torah study. The reason why toiling in Torah is so core and so important, like the Arizal explained to his main student Reb Chaim Vital, because this breaks the klippos by toiling in Torah. Move on, v'gam poshut, mahoye kvar atoike v'achayzik the klippos el shoylem eisik mitzroch shal. It's understood and it's obvious how powerful could have already been the klippos that had something to do with Arizal's Torah. The Alpha became still in all Shagia. Arizal believed Torah b'giyatzuma. The Arizal toiled in Torah study with a lot of toil. Kedel Shabbat klippos to break the klippos. From this understood how much more so at Kaman Nogea v'nochutz inyan ha'igiyah b'Torah is a kolech Yisrael she'einu b'dargas Arizal. How much it matters and how crucial and vital it is toiling in Torah by every single yid that's not on the level of the Arizal. The kivin shemesaprim la noshim kerkeinu oidis goydel hafla the igiyas ha'Torah it's Arizal, since they're relating it and telling it over to people on our level about the unbelievable greatness of the toil of Torah by the Arizal. Moving, it's understood that the story has to be a lesson for every single Yid. He has to put in effort and toil, very much so, in the Torah study. Okay, moving on, like it's understood, after the opening up of the road, in other words, opening up the channel as it's brought down Chassidus through the Arizal, so this becomes applicable to every single Yid. Another main point concerning toiling in Torah in a way of avodas perach. Avodas perach nichol gam lechas noshim la'anoshim. And avodas perach is included women's work for men. Koloimar. This means to say, im yoshim lechas noshim mikala yoshim masher melechas anoshim. Though women's work is lighter than men's work, afal became mekibim she'ein rogel b'kach, since men are not used to it. Nechshavas avodas zu la'avodas perach. This is called difficult work. From this is also understood concerning the avodas perach in Torah. The main thing is changing his nature and his habit. We recently had this in Chitas a few days ago. Like Tanya explains, in the advantage of someone that's called a servant of Elokim to someone that hasn't served him, that has to do with the changing of his habit. If a person was accustomed to reviewing his Torah study 100 times, and he reviews it 101 times, so that's breaking his habit, and then he's called an Oved Elokim, like the Alter Rebbe explains. The Inyan, the Perach, the idea of this toil and labor, Shiur, how the Gil is changing one's habit, that becomes to such a degree that this avoida becomes his nature, until he suffers from this lack of work, that he feels that he's missing something. Let's skip over to the next paragraph. Though this type of avoida, to affect upon himself that toiling in Torah should be his nature, till he'll be in pain from not toiling in Torah. Kosher b'yoser, this is a very difficult avoida to affect upon oneself. This is something that's applicable to every single Yid. Since the will of every single Yid by nature fulfill the will of the Creator, like the well-known ruling of the Rambam, that every single Yid wants to do what Hashem wants him to do. And also sheklolos the entire existence of a Yid is to serve his maker. I was only created to serve my maker. Therefore, as long as a person's existence exists as a creation, so then he's serving his maker because that's his true nature. The fact that his previous nature, that he wasn't aware of this idea of serving his maker, was the opposite. This is only an external thing that conceals and covers over his true nature of a Yid. Therefore, when a person gets into the habit of serving Hashem in a way of toil, the opposite of his previous nature, then he becomes revealed his true nature, that he wants to serve his maker to such a degree that he suffers from lack of this service. Kasher klolos ha'avoida delimra Torah v'klolos ha'avodas Hashem ba'ofen ha'avodas perach nasan tiva v'regilusoi. when the general service of Torah study and the general service of Hashem in a way of hard labor becomes his nature and his habit, Gam oz sarich liyes klolos inyan da'avodas perach k'loimer shinui tiv v'regilusei, then he still has to work hard. He still has to go on further and changing his nature more and changing his habit more. Mekiven sheklolos inyan da'avodas perach udavar achreichi b'zman hagolus, since the general idea of difficult labor is a necessary thing in the time of golus, k'dei lifol is close in nagula, to be able to affect the general idea of the redemption. So the Rebbe is going to explain what this means. Vabir b'zad explanation, this is kasher Yehudi nimtza b'darge kazu shayigia b'toira nasis tiva v'regilusai, that he's in such a, when a Yid finds himself such a level that the toil in Torah becomes his nature, becomes his habit. Azai ha'inyan da'avodas perach etzem misbata be'etzem ha'uvda she'ein bi'yicholte lilmoi Torah v'meshchayim kulei mamish k'yayitz b'zeh. So then his toil in Torah, his work in Torah, his difficult labor in Torah expresses itself in the fact that he is upset that he can't sit and learn 24/7. This means to say, because of his nature, his will, and he wishes to study Torah the entire day, literally. As opposed to the command of the Torah, that Hashem benches you in everything you do, it forces him to devote an hour throughout the day for the needs of making a living. So too, that of necessity he devotes a certain amount of time during the day for all of his physical needs, eating, drinking, sleeping, spending time in the fresh air. He does this only out of that he feels that he must do so. Because the Torah tells him he has to guard his health, so therefore he does all of these things, but not because he wants to do it. Though his involvement in all these matters, eating and drinking, making a living, is all for the sake of heaven, so he should be able to serve Hashem. So this is what Hashem commanded me, and this is what Hashem commanded me. Hashem commanded me to learn Torah, Hashem commanded me to do mitzvahs, and He commanded me to take care of my health. So why am I upset, or why do I feel forced when it comes to health matters, because I'm taking away from my Torah study? So the Rebbe says there's a difference between the way a person has to be involved in things for his health or making a living, and the way he has to be involved in Torah mitzvahs. When he's doing all of these things, even though he's doing it l'shem shamayim, eating and drinking and making a living, harei zeh hechsher mitzvah b'lvad, it's only preparatory for a mitzvah. Despite the great quality of a preparation for a mitzvah, it's not the same quality of a mitzvah itself. Therefore, the very fact that he needs a preparation for a mitzvah, he has to be involved in matters of this world. He cannot be involved in the mitzvah itself throughout the entire day. It causes him suffering. It's called a difficult work. Since he wants to be involved the entire time in the very avodah of serving his maker, that is the purpose of his creation. He doesn't want to be involved in any preparations for serving his maker. He wants just the serving his maker himself. Like the Rambam wrote, both in the laws of Tshuva and the laws of kings, that the sages and the prophets and the entire Klal Yisrael did not desire the days of Moshiach Like they should do al kol ha'olam, not so that they should rule over the entire world, but like they lechav lishtis l'smayach, not they should be able to eat and drink and make merry, el kadesh yiu pnuyim b'toyra v'chachmasa, but rather they wished for the times of Moshiach, so they should be free to study Torah and its wisdoms. Kadesh yenuchu malchis she'ena manichsel mas b'toyra v'mitzvos kahegin, so that they should be freed from governments that are not allowing them to be involved in Torah mitzvahs appropriately, and they will find calmness and tranquility. They will be able to increase in wisdom. But pashtus, and simply put, la'asid lavi yikuyim hayud, when Mashiach comes, will be fulfilled what was foretold, v'amdu zarim b'ro tzaynchem, that foreigners will rise up, in other words, not Yidden, and they will take your sheep out to pasture. Then a Yid will not need to be involved in worldly matters of plowing and sowing. He'll be able to be involved in Torah study the entire day, corresponding to his nature and to his will. That's why Yid cries out to Hashem, Ad Mosai, how long does he have to suffer and be involved in worldly matters? A person is going to plow during the time of plowing, and he's going to sow during the time of sowing. What's going to happen with the Torah? In other words, when am I going to study? The fact that we need to have your grain and your wine, so there's an advice that there's an idea that the Eibush can do. He can bring the geula. That will be fulfilled what was foretold, that foreigners will rise up and they will take your sheep out to pasture. Even more so. Not only during the time of Golus, there are a few hours throughout the day. That in those hours he has to be involved in worldly matters, and he's not able to be involved in Torah study, etc. Also in those hours, then he is involved in Torah study and fulfilling mitzvahs. His avodah is not in the most perfect way as the avodah of a Yid will be when there will be the future redemption. To such a degree is his avodah now incomplete. There are many different mitzvahs. In the time of exile, there is no possibility for him to fulfill them. For example, mitzvahs atluyas ba'aretz, mitzvahs that are dependent upon Eretz Yisrael. Valachs kam v'kama, mitzvahs akshuris and binyan Beis HaMikdash, those mitzvahs that are connected with the building the Beis HaMikdash. Hacham akrovas karban tamid pamayim b'chol yom v'kiyotz b'zeh, including or beginning with offering the tamid carbon twice a day, once in the morning, once in the evening. Therefore, when a Yid thinks into the fact that every single day, even more so, twice a day, he's lacking the idea of bringing the carbon tamid. There's no greater pain that he cannot do this mitzvah. And it's obvious that this awareness that the perfection of the avodah of Torah mitzvahs is only applicable when Mashiach comes, it doesn't affect weakness, heaven forbid, in his avodah now. But just the opposite. Since his will is so powerful to fulfill the Torah mitzvahs in an ultimate way, even now he's involved in this in Torah mitzvahs with his full force and full strength. Therefore he toils in Torah study, and he toils and the general service of Hashem he does with great toil.
Could you go back? You go back a few lines. We just me. I don't know.
Not just you, Simma.
Okay, so
I lost him too.
Okay, so go back a few lines.
We'll move him b'pashtus. Did you hear about the Karban Talmud? Hello? Hello?
Yes, I did. I heard about the Farbrengen Summit.
Umuvim b'pashtus. Sheyedia zu sheshleimus avodah Torah mitzvah sheyeches rak la'aseh lavi. It's obviously understood that this knowledge, that the perfection of the avodah of Torah mitzvah is applicable only when Moshiach comes. Eina pa'elas chalishus chas v'shalom b'avodasi akshav. It doesn't bring about a weakness in the service now. Ela adra, but just the opposite. Mikivin sheretzoyne chazak al kach l'kaimus at Torah mitzvah b'tachs ha'shleimus. Since he has such a powerful will and desire to fulfill the Torah mitzvahs in the most perfect way possible, which seemingly I can't do now. So even now, the person invests all of his energy in doing Torah mitzvahs. Therefore, he toils in Torah study, and the general service of Hashem with powerful, with very strong toil, literally difficult labor, until he perspires. And this toiling.
We're not hearing you. You're going.
The very fact that he knows that he is, that he's not at the full state of perfection of Torah mitzvahs, so he still in all puts in effort in Torah study to such degree that the effort makes him perspire, and that effort is in a way that is something that's considered enjoyable by him. But at the very same time, the paragraph before the letter Chavtes, along with this, he is not satisfied with the type of service in the time of Golus where it's, like we said, very limited, and there's so many things he cannot do, and even the things that he could do is very limited, to the degree and not fully perfect can be done. Now he cries out and he begs Hashem that the redemption should be now. Then he will be able to serve his Maker in the ultimate state of perfection. Let's find where we left off over here. Okay, we're holding Ois Chavtes on this page. Let us return to our topic. Through the general idea of toiling in Torah study in a way of difficult labor in the time of Golus, we merit the revelation of the inner part of Torah. When Mashiach comes, the revelation of Mashiach's Torah. Like we said before, part of the difficult labor includes looking forward to the redemption, to the future redemption. That he is suffering from the fact that in the time of Golus he doesn't have the capability to fulfill Torah mitzvahs perfectly. And through this avodas perach we merit the future redemption, that then they will study the Torah of Moshiach. That's the general idea, that his study is in his hand. It says about the future reward. It says, fortunate is one who comes here and his Torah study is in his hand. In other words, he possesses Torah study. He studied Torah. He didn't wait for Mashiach's times to study Torah, or he didn't wait for Gan Eden to study Torah. He studied Torah now. Through Torah study in the time of exile. Ba'ifin the Talmud biyad in such a way that the study is in his hands. What's it mean it's in his hands? Kalaymer Torah shaloi. It becomes that person's Torah. Mekivin shalomda ba'avona v'asage pnimius idea. Since the person studied it with understanding and an inner comprehension through toiling, through this we merit the revelation of the inner part of the Torah of Moshiach's times. Like Rashi explains on the pasuk in Shir Hashirim, where it says, "He will kiss me from the kisses of his mouth." And we are promised by Hashem that He will still appear upon them, that He will explain to them the secrets of their reasons and their concealed aspects of the Torah. Last line on this page, Lamed, in addition to the general idea of Torah studying the time of Golus, Kidei, so as Lizkais to merit Legili Pnimis HaTorah, the lost law, the revelation of the inner part of Torah of Mashiach's times. Yesh Nahad Goshem Yuchedes Menegel Lelimud Pnimis HaTorah, Torah's Achsidus Bizman HaGolus. There's a special emphasis in studying the inner part of the Torah of Chassidus during the time of exile. Mekivin Shalimud Zagufu Me'ein Gili Pnimis HaTorah, the lost law, since the study of this Torah itself is similar to the revelation of the inner part of Torah of Mashiach's times. So up till now we were talking about toiling in Torah in general as a preparation for Mashiach's times. Now the Rebbe is saying a special preparation is the study of the inner part of Torah, because that's the main revelation of Torah. That's going to be when Mashiach comes, the inner part of Torah. Along with this, moving b'pashtus, it's understood. The revelation of the inner part of Torah when Mashiach comes will be so much greater and be so much more novel in comparison to the study of the inner part of the Torah now. Because also in the inner part of the Torah there's different levels. In general, there's what's called Raz in the Torah. There's the secrets of the Torah. That's one level. Then there's Verazin Derazin Shabbat Torah. And there's the secrets of the Torah. And the brackets that Rebbe says that it's not just two levels, but there's multiple levels in the secrets and the secrets of secrets and so on. Skip to the next paragraph. Therefore, in the final generations before the redemption, Nizgalu Hamayonis, the Pnimis HaTorah, were revealed the well springs of the inner part of the Torah. How come? Because in Torah study itself, what part of Torah study is the most important for the Geula? The study of the inner part of the Torah, and the way of spreading the well springs outwards. It acts as appropriate preparation for the revelation of the inner part of Torah through Mashiach. That the master will come, this the King Moshiach, then the study of the inner part of the Torah will be in the ultimate perfection. In a base in Yarmanal, these two ideas, that the main revelation of the inner part of the Torah will be in the future when Mashiach comes. That we merit this through our present study. Like it says, his Torah is in his hand. It's hinted in this commentary of Rashi that we referred to right away at the beginning, that it says this is the laws of the Pesach, and then he goes into all these laws. The Pirish Rashi Mevor, in Rashi's commentary it's explained, Shabiyud Dalad Benissen Nemerlam Parshazu. When were the psukim from Zoyschuk Pesach said about all the halachas of the Korban Pesach? It was told to them on the 14th of Nisan. Still in all, was written after the part of the parsha that speaks about them leaving Mitzrayim. Because the parsha that he's now talking about from Zoyschuk Pesach is primarily discussing laws that were not applicable then when the Yidden were in Mitzrayim. It's primarily applicable afterwards in later generations. Kaloimar, this means as follows. Mitzad echad roim sheikru shel parshas u'misyaches b'negel lePesach doiros. On the one hand, we see that the main part of the parsha that we read in Shishi of this upcoming week is connected and relates to the Pesach of the future generations after going out of Mitzrayim. But on the other hand, have Sharas Lazeva Pesach Doiris, the possibility of the future Korban Pesach. It's through relating this parsha to Moshe v'Aaron. Through Moshe v'Aaron, it was related to all the Yidden. Even before they went out of Mitzrayim. So the Rebbe is going to say this fits in exactly what we were talking about. This is the hint for everything we spoke about before. Pesach moed al klolos inyan agula. Pesach hints as a general idea of the redemption. L'choyle roish, first and foremost, it's hinting agulas Mitzrayim, the redemption from Mitzrayim. Uba nichlalas gam agula asida. And in the Pesach is also included the future redemption. Like we say in the Agada, the one who redeemed us and redeemed our forefathers from Mitzrayim. So too he will make us reach to other Yomim Tovim and pilgrimage festivals. Rejoicing in the building of your city. We will give you thanks on a new song for our redemption, Gula Sida, the future redemption. That's why the Parsha Zois Pesach, which is talking about the later Korban Pesachs, was said on the 14th of Nisan before the redemption, but close to it. But but it's recorded in the Torah after the Torah records leaving Mitzrayim. It's similar to the revelation of the Pnimis HaTorah at the end of the time of Golus, like on Yudalad Nisan they were told about these halachas. Even though the inner part of the Torah, primarily the main study of the inner part of the Torah will be after the future redemption. Why is it necessary then to say it beforehand? Because one prepares for the other, only through the revelation of the inner part of the Torah at the end of the exile. We merit the revelation of the inner part of the Torah in the future time. Just like the actual recording of Zois Pesach in the Torah is a result of it being said on Yudal Nisan before the Geula took place. Lamed Bey's last line of this page, V'amaiso Iker, actions what's primary. Lahoisa B'limud Torah b'seif Zman HaGolus, to add in the study of Torah at the end of time of Golus. U'b'myuchad Limud Torah, Pnimis HaTorah v'fatzasa chutza, especially the study of the inner part of the Torah and spreading it outward. Through this we merit the revelation of the inner part of Torah of Moshiach's times, Limud Torah Mashiach, Mepiv Shel Mashiach, the study of the Torah of Mashiach from the mouth of Mashiach. Moving is understood, so that the study of Torah should be the way it's supposed to be. It's necessary to be prefaced by the avoid of davening. Davening is like the general idea that one needs to make a bracha on Torah beforehand to recognize that it's Hashem's Torah. The same way we have to daven before studying Torah to have that recognition of Hashem's Torah being studied. So the davening should be the way it's supposed to be. There has to be loving another Yid. Like it's known what's written in the Arizal's writings, and brought down in the Siddur of the Alter Rebbe, Siddur Hashavel Chol Nefesh, a Siddur that's written for everyone. It's not only for very great people. Before davening, a person needs to accept upon himself the mitzvah of loving your fellow as yourself, until the ultimate perfection of loving Yidden, in the way of unity amongst Yidden. As a result of the nifel close in chinuch, it's affected the general idea of education. Hein chinuch atzmai v'hein chinuch azulas. Both self-education, educating other people, because you have a love for another Yid, you're going to educate them about Torah mitzvahs. From these two general miftzayim of loving another Yid and education, a result from that all the other miftzayim, beginning from the mitzvah of Torah study, like we spoke about at length earlier, mitzvah tefillin, the mitzvah of donning tefillin, mitzvah mezuzah, mitzvah tzedakah, mitzvah buy small svarim, to have a house full of svarim, Yavne Chachamel, that Rebbe always associates with the city of Yavne and its Chachamim. Mitzvah Neiris Shabbos Kodesh Yom Tov, the mitzvah of Neiris Shabbos Kodesh and Yom Tov, mitzvah Kashrus Achila V'Shtiyah, kosher food, mitzvah Taras HaMashpacha, family purity, V'chein HaMitzvah Shazman Grama, and so also the mitzvah that's time dependent. La'achet is called Bnei Yisrael, the Ksiva Sifra Torah Klolim, to join all the Jewish people through writing the general Sifra Torah, Befrat Sha'echsen Kvar B'Ksiva Sifra Torah Chamishi, at that time in the year Tafshin Mem Gimel, 1983, when this Farbrengen took place, they were holding and writing the fifth Sefer Torah. Like it's known, the special quality of the five Sefer Torah, Keneged Chamish Chumshei Torah, corresponding to the five books of the Torah. Skip over to the next paragraph. By they close Havoida, B'chol Inyanim Hamurim Leil, and through the general Avoida and all the matters spoken about before. Zoichem B'kar of Mamish Dula Mitzvah Shlema de Moshiach Tzedkenu, we merit speedily the true and complete redemption through Moshiach. Shal Yeh Tachsa Shlemis B'chol Inyanim Lavois Hashem Knal Barucha. Then there will be the ultimate perfection of all matters of serving Hashem, like we spoke about previously at length. Shlemis HaTorah, Shlemis HaAm, Shlemis HaAretz, perfection of Torah, the perfection of the Jewish people, and the perfection of the land, meaning all of them whole and complete, not missing anything. Like we said before, speedily in our days, Mamish, Simchas Olam Al Rosham, an everlasting joy upon their heads.